Hey there, as usual we got a busy day here at Raleigh City Farm. We got to flip some beds, actually a lot of beds, and get some fall crops in the ground. So it is now late July and we're going to be putting out some fall crops. In fact, I think we're a little bit late on some of these, but we're just going to give it a shot because it's kind of how we roll this year. We're just always a little bit behind. I think most of you guys probably understand that feeling. So this is all that corn behind me here. We're going to flip these beds. So continuing with our strategy of keeping the roots in the ground, we're just taking a pair of loppers here and just cutting them right below the surface level, leaving the roots in the ground, trying to, minimize the soil disturbance. So it takes a little bit of work, but we'll get this out and get this bed flipped. So we got these beds flipped out here. Got a couple more to do. If you guys were curious, I have talked a little about our struggles with the sweet corn this year, and as I mentioned in a previous video, one of the main reasons is we got our timing wrong and the transplants went out too late. They were too big when they went in the ground and it caused some weird growth, and I had known that, but we just messed up the timing. This farm, we're trying to push it as fast as we can this year, and we definitely made some mistakes. So we have one more bed here that looks amazing. We transplanted that one later because we built that bed later, and those look great. Hopefully we'll get some yield off of that. But we're gonna put some winter squash out. I know it's a little bit late in the season, but we're gonna give it a go just because we're gonna give it a shot. So we have a bunch of winter squash to transplant out today, and we got some lettuce to go out today. So we got a couple more beds to flip, but that is what we are up to today. And again, I really can't stress enough about the cutting of the plants and leaving the roots in the ground. It is just so good for the biology. And really the process is pretty simple, and the beds came out great. This block's been great. The weed pressure's been really low out here too. All right, so this is that bed of corn that's doing really well, and you can see the color looks good, the size is a little bit more uniform, and these guys are coming along nicely. We're gonna leave this bed in here, hopefully get a little bit of a yield off this soon. And we did get the timing right on this. These were transplanted, and if you get that timing right, it does work. You can transplant corn, but it also works great as a direct seeded crop. So if you guys were curious what's going on over here, this is part of that area we're prepared for blueberries. This little strip that we didn't show you in that other video, but this got done as well, just like that other bigger area off camera. So yeah, I'm gonna get back to getting these beds ready. So 4 of the beds were the sweet corn we pulled out. 2 of the beds we're flipping today were baby greens that we did that cover with the tarp move. This time we did not put any compost down. We literally just harvested it as low as we could and tarped it. It came out pretty good. One of the 2 beds was better than the other, and this one had a little bit that was still alive, I think, so we just quickly ran the flame weeder over it to sort of like cauterize it. That way I feel better about regrowth. And so, but generally that's been a great approach. We've been really happy with that system, and I think it does accelerate it if you do put down some compost and wet it down and then cover it. I think it happens a little bit faster, but it does work. You just gotta wait a little bit longer if you just cut it low and put the landscape fabric on it. And the last bed we're flipping today is this middle bed here that has tomatoes in it, which they're determinate tomatoes. They've fruited out. We've harvested them for a while and they're pretty much done, so we're gonna take those out. We do have another succession over here. Different variety, but we do at least have a second succession for the second part of the summer. Same thing with these guys with the corn. We're just cutting them, cutting the stems at the base, right below the soil level. We'll pull out the T-posts and flip the bed as usual. So we do pull out the drip lines when we're flipping beds, so generally I like to put them back in before we transplant. That way you're not pulling the lines across the freshly transplanted plants in there, and so it's less disturbance. So get these guys hooked up. So I got to reconnect the lines here, and often what happens when you're preparing beds is that the soil will cover the connections, and you really just want to be careful that you don't get soil into the lines because that can cause clogs and issues with drip. So I just want to show you how I do this. It's a little pro tip. I turn the water on ahead of time so there's pressure in this line, and what I do is I will blow the line out with water and sort of cut my hand over it like this to make sure I rinse it all off so that there's no soil in the connection, and that way when I hook the line up here, it'll be nice and clean. So it's just a quick little step there that doesn't take a lot of time, but is really big. And we're just really careful when we're moving the lines that we keep them out of the ground as much as possible. We just really want to try to make sure that we're not getting soil inside the lines so that they don't get clogged. All right, so as I'm getting these last couple lines hooked up here, generally as I said before, I'm a much bigger fan of overhead versus drip, especially with high rotation plots, because you don't have to screw around with drip tape all the time. and just makes things a little bit quicker. Also, it's great for direct seeding crops. If you want to hear more about, you know, overhead versus drip irrigation, check out this video up here. I'll explain all my thoughts about it. All right, so I want to take a minute to talk about wood chips, and you guys know that we put wood chips in our walkways. And the reason why I want to talk about this right now is that this bed here had tomatoes in it, and so it'd been here for a few months. And after a few months of walking around and all that kind of stuff, the wood chips started to creep into the beds, which actually is not a problem. When the wood chips are on top, when they're on the surface, it's fine. It creates a great mulch. Now, when you can come into trouble is when you incorporate those wood chips into the soil, you'll get a nitrogen tie-up. And that can definitely happen. If the wood chips are on the surface, it's okay, but once they get incorporated in the soil where the roots are and they're trying to pull nutrients out of the ground, that's when you have a problem. So, you know, if you're using any sort of carbon material, straw, wood chips, you know, leaves, stuff like that, they're great on the surface, but you just gotta keep that in mind. And I have seen this happen before at my home farm, where I had moved some beds and there was like a walkway that I pulled most of the wood chips out and covered with compost, and it was definitely tying in nitrogen for a while there, so that definitely can happen. So all I did here was I just used a soft rake and just sort of rake out the wood chips into the walkways before we do our normal bed flip. But just want to take a minute to talk about wood chips and nitrogen tie-up. Another part of our bed prep is putting down wood chips in the walkways. And on my old farm, I used to just do this like once a month or every 2 months and just do all the walkways. But I find it to just be a lot easier to just take care of things as you go along. So part of our procedure is that after we flip beds, generally sometimes even before we plant them, but we put the wood chips out in the walkways. And this has been our setup. This has been working really well. So we have one of these little carts here. We filled up with, this will hold 6 5-gallon buckets. And then we take these and we put it out in the bed, just sprinkling them out. It's really accurate with the buckets. Let me show you. That's it. All right, so I got this walkway done. I still got a couple more to do. But it's just one of those things, if you stay on top of it, it's not a big deal. If you wait till it gets really bad and then you have to do a lot of work, or maybe you get some weed pressure in there you have to deal with, then you fall behind on it. So just stay on top of it. When you flip a bed, just put wood chips on either side, you're good to go. We gotta get back to transplanting. We finished planting out these beds, transplanting out these beds right here. So as I said, we're doing some fall crops. We're doing some winter squash, which is kind of late in the year to start them, but we're gonna give it a go. It stays warm and bright pretty late in the year here, being in North Carolina. So we're planting out some spaghetti squash, some acorn, and some butternut. And it's the first time I've grown these varieties, so I can't recommend them or not recommend them. But yeah, anyways, we've got 2 more beds of squash to transplant and a bed of lettuce we gotta get in the ground. All right, we got all that done. So 7 beds flipped and transplanted, which is great. Big push today. And it's been interesting the last few weeks. I would say we've been really in a groove here. We're just kind of farming, not doing projects. All the interns and people are trained up to do what they need to do, and it's been great. We've just been kind of cruising along, and the soil's starting to come into life here and sort of settle in and getting some better growth out of what we have in the ground, which is great. I know we had some of the troubles with the compost early, so things are feeling good here. But we're about to take a change because 2 of my interns are students at NC State, and they're gonna be going back to school pretty soon. So we're gonna get some new people in here, and it's just gonna be really interesting because we're gonna have to be going through the training process again and everything like that. So everyone, all the interns and volunteers have just been incredible, and this place would not be nearly the same without them. Next week, I think I'll do some interview kind of stuff with them, so you guys can, I know I said I'd introduce them to you guys, but I never got a chance to, so probably let them reflect a little bit on their experiences here at the farm, which will be cool. Also, the other greenhouse, we're getting close on that guy, and I will let you guys know more about what's going to be happening with that, and we'll take you along for that journey because that's going to be a project to get that operational. So just want to take you along for the journey today. I know some of you guys like this sort of day-to-day stuff and mixing that up with the instructional stuff and the tours and interviews and things like that. So hope you enjoyed this. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you hit subscribe if you're not already. It'd be greatly appreciated, and we'll see you in the next one. Hey there, got a busy day of them. So we got these beds flipped out here. The size is coming up nicely, and the timing. So this is that bed of corn that's doing well, and we're gonna leave this guy in here, and hopefully we'll get a little bit more yield out of this. The